The House Families and Veterans Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Schmal,
Here.
Representatives Wozniak,
Here.
Fox, Johnson,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Pavlov,
Here.
Wolford,
Present.
Young,
Here.
Byrne,
Here.
Rangan,
Here.
Song.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 10 members present, a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Representative Wozniak moves to adopt the minutes of the April 15th meeting without objection, so ordered. Our first order is business. We were going to welcome Representative Jamie Greene to testify on her House bill. She is not available yet, so let's go at ease for a second. The committee will come back to order. Welcome, Representative Jamie Greene. We know you had another committee going, so we understand. Everybody's like this today. Everybody's got to be everywhere at the same time. Thank you for being here, and you can start anytime you want.
Thank you so much. It was just getting heated there, so I was like, can we break? Okay. Thank you, Representative Schmaltz. Thank you, Representative Young, and Representative Wozniak, the chairs, and the rest of the committee members. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the House Committee on Families and Veterans. And my bill 4279, which creates the Michigan Army National Guard and Air National Guard Apprenticeship Program. That's what the bill does. Hold on, I'm trying to catch my breath. I ran here. So this is a critical step towards honoring our service members, not only in word, but also in action. Our men and women in uniform undergo extensive specialized training during their military service, developing skills that often align directly with civilian workforce needs. Yet, too often, these qualifications go unrecognized in the job market. This bill bridges that gap by formalizing essentially a no-cost structured pathway for Guard members to convert their military training into Department of Labor recognized apprenticeship programs. And there is also a substitute that has been offered that also has the support. We've been working with the DMVA and Leo offices, and they are in support of the substitute. Under this legislation, the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs would collaborate with the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, and the GI Bill Approval Agency to register compatible military specialties and ensure service members receive full credit for the work they already do. Training would occur during duty hours under supervision, with the end goal being not only successful completion of apprenticeships, but better access to high-demand, high-skilled civilian careers. And most importantly, this program empowers those who serve to return home with pride in their service. It gives them portable credentials, financial opportunity, and stronger connection to Michigan's workforce. It reflects our state's ongoing commitment to those who sacrifice for our own safety and freedom. So I really urge your support. I am open for questions. Just so you know that these legislative standards have already been set by the federal government. So I read LSB's analysis, which is actually incorrect. So we have the National Guard guidelines for apprenticeship standards. So this is actually a huge packet. I didn't bring the giant binder. So this already exists. The standards are already created. So the LSB fiscal impact is not correct as well. The sub also has Leo taking over the program, and they already have the FTEs who are already lined up that do this exact same job for other apprenticeship programs. So this is much more streamlined than that fiscal analysis laid out to be. So I am happy to answer questions. Missouri already does this. Here is the Missouri document for everything that they have, that their Guard does, how it converts to the civilian world. So lots of states are already doing this. We already do this for our active duty military folks, who are not in classified. Mine was classified, so mine didn't transfer as easy. I was highly paid, I guess, computer technician. But this is like a no nonsense. It doesn't make sense. This bill comes up year after year, and it is a disservice to our National Guard and our Air National Guard to not get this going, especially when we are having workforce development issues and really critical in some basic mechanical, HVAC, even counseling. I mean, there are so many jobs that transfer over to civilian life, and we would be able to fill those vacancies quickly with our own folks who serve. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rep. Greene. Thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you for rushing in here to do this. You mentioned that this was talked about in the past. Why did it take so long for this to come up again?
I am actually not, because I believe this was even our Representative Tate's bill before he was the Speaker, his bill as well. So it doesn't make sense why this has been stymied.
Yeah, it sounds like a great bill. Do we have any questions? Rep. Wozniak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rep. Greene, it's mentioned there's a May 1st, 2025 date in here where the governor said shall. Is that a pertinent date for us?
No, that is not a pertinent date for us. Obviously, that's coming up quickly. I dropped this bill. This was part of my Project Blueback back in December, so things happen though, right? So of course, when we will work with the policy folks on tweaking, when we already have that sub, we will change the dates to roll it out to closer to when the bill will be passing.
It looks like a really good program. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Rep. Reingens.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Rep. Greene. As a co-sponsor of the bill, I'm glad to hear more about this. I am curious. I see some testimony from, it seems like somebody else will be testifying after you, that describes the FTEs, the full-time equivalent staff, and you just mentioned it yourself, that are already in place to implement this program. Why do we need a bill to make that possible if they're already in place and we already apparently have the federal funding for it? Why do we need to like change a law or something to do
Yeah,
this?
that's a great question, Representative Weinigans, because why do we have to make a lot of laws? Because for some reason the departments don't take action unless we give them specific and clear instructions on what to do.
Thank you.
Rep. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Greene. You can breathe. Oh, you're all good. I just out of curiosity, I know it might be in this packet, but we just sat down and got the packet. But I was just wondering about how many servicemen and women could this possibly affect for job placement on a yearly basis?
Every single member that is a member of the National Guard and Air National Guard.
What would our numbers be at?
That would
About? Anyone
be a
know?
tag question. 70,000? 10,000? 10,000. 10,000.
10,000 every year.
Well, 10,000 who are currently serving in the
currently
National
serving.
Guard
Okay.
and Air National Guard.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Rep. Wolford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for you. I know you were in the Navy. I was in the Marine Corps. And so I've gotten a couple of texts from people saying they don't understand what we're trying to do with this. So could you give me the Marine Corps version, a very simplified, what we're trying to do with this bill? I'd appreciate it, and thank you.
Absolutely, Representative Wolford. Well, unfortunately, I don't have any crayons and a drawing board to explain that for you. But I will do my
You
best.
asked for that, Rep. Wolford. You asked for that.
So basically, you take a job that you're training, you're drilling in, you go to a school for. And we did this when we were active duty. The National Guard and the Air National Guard does the exact same thing. So if you are an airplane mechanic in the National Guard, you should be able to be an airplane mechanic as a civilian, and that should cross over, and Leo is the one who gives those certifications out. So that's where that would then merge together, so you would meet their criteria for the civilian life as you already meet that requirement for the civilian life. So that's the whole point, is that what you do on the weekends and or when you drill, when you go serve it overseas or in another state, that would seamlessly then transfer to civilian life as well. So you don't have to live multiple personalities. You know I'm kidding.
Rep. Johnson?
Oh, man.
Rep. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the question with Rep. Brangans, but I'm thinking, first of all, there's so many industries. They put at the top of the pile of applicants anyone who's had prior military experience of any kind. They prefer that. They know how to obey orders. They know how to follow instructions. They know protocol. They respect line of, the hierarchy and the infrastructure of authority. And I think it's probably the biggest reason I'm asking you that this is a benefit is it helps the military person that will become a veteran communicate their skill level. And that's hard. They're not all great communicators just because they were in the military. But this helps give them a formalized way to communicate. I'm good at this. I did this. Now help me go in that direction. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So, for example, what I did was, I was a cryptologist, and I worked in high-level programming, and network administration, switching, data storage. I actually worked in a data center as well. 3 terabytes would take up this whole room back in the 90s. And so, correct, I was young, and I didn't realize this incredible skill set that I had that would transfer into being a network administrator essentially today. But it wasn't just, I did get a job after, but I could have I had a lot more earning potential that was unbeknownst to me, that a program like this and sitting down with somebody, they would show me all of the things that I would be able to qualify for. And it would seamlessly transfer, especially into those ones that the LEO gives certificates for.
Okay, Rep. Young?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Representative. This really sounds like a great program. I have my colleagues, a co-sponsor, so all those things are exciting. I guess I'm trying to understand the cost of it, because I know you mentioned earlier that the House fiscal analysis wasn't necessarily correct. But how much does the Missouri program, do you have any idea how much it costs for them to run their program?
I do not.
Okay. And so we're still not certain what it's gonna cost us to run our program?
So we already have a lot of the FTEs in LEO who do this for civilian jobs. We have then the booklet that's put out, which I showed you the front page, of the National Guard Bureau for all occupation, specialty, and branches listed in these standards. So they just have to transfer these standards that already exist to what LEO provides. That's why it can't, the federal standards can't necessarily, how do I put this? Like, LEO's it may have a different name, and it'll say what it is, what it requires in it. So I don't believe it will cost as much as they said they will, because we already have full-time employees doing this. And also the Military and Veterans Affairs has this huge structure of employees who do this every day with veterans. So it would just transfer over. We already do this with our active duty federal veterans. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing this with our own Michigan Guardsmen and Michigan Airmen.
Okay, but we are saying that we will need some additional FTEs. It's one of those things. We look at any job. If you're already overworked, if you're already doing the most, then to add on another level of responsibility, that puts more stress on the worker.
I guess it's the same responsibility. And now that the federal government is paring down, we'll have less veterans soon because they're cutting. They're doing trimming. So the National Guard pretty much stays the same, because that's what we approve as the legislature to have their capacity at. So they would just blend in. Like the federal government grows and shrinks, they will just, as the federal government is shrinking, will blend in with it. So I think, after looking at all the org charts and everything, it is not as expensive as the fiscal analysis, especially that LEO. That's what the sub does, and this was written before that LEO is managing it, and the Veterans Affairs doesn't have to manage it, so they don't have to recreate the wheel.
Okay, we'll keep looking into it. Thank you so much.
Rep. Burns?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep, for your testimony today. I appreciate it. My question was somewhat similar to Rep. Young's. I think you mentioned the Missouri program. Do you know how long their program has been in place and roughly how many folks have completed that? Just curious if or how that might transfer over in terms of what we could expect in Michigan.
I do not have. Oh, there we go. 2022.
Okay. Okay, so it's been in place for about 3 years. Do we have numbers on kind of rate of completion? Or if not, I can follow up with you after. Just curious, since that program has been around for a minute, if there might be any way that we could look at that, just to have a sense of what we could expect here. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sure they can get that information for you, too, if you
Sure.
can't find it.
Thank
Rep.
you, Chair.
Thompson?
Does this, I apologize, I was never in the military, or in the National Guard. So the National Guard, the credits that they're accumulating for the training that they're doing for the job that they would do, are these licensed or are these certificates? So would this go into healthcare?
So, for example, you're an air traffic controller
Okay.
in the military. You can be an
Right.
air traffic controller as a civilian.
Now what about healthcare? So if you were
So
to
you
get
are a
nursing
corpsman.
license.
A lot of the corpsmen become LPNs. They actually go on to become doctors. They go on to become nurses as well. So they especially the corpsmen, they have this incredible skill set from essentially being an EMT to the skill set of a nurse, not quite, because that's an office. So there is a difference between the officer, which is a degreed program, and enlisted. But these enlisted folks get a tremendous amount of training and experience that can seamlessly, all day long, if I go via ambulance, if I know that there was a corpsman veteran, I know they're going to get a vein immediately. They're going to patch me up, especially if I'm because they have so much training and experience in it.
So technically, there's a gap then, because they still have to, they're not getting a license, so they can do all those things. But is there a gap where they can't come out of service and go right into that license carrying over to practice medicine or practice?
Well, that's what the bill does, is to make that they can even have that while they're serving in the military as well. Because you got to remember that the Air National Guard and the National Guard it's not a full, well, it gets a little dicey at Selfridge, but it's usually not a full-time job. They go through extensive training and then they drill. And so they also have civilian jobs. So many times they'll be an engineer and they might be an air traffic controller as in the military. I know that sounds wild, but that's a real possibility.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Rep. Wolford, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, first and foremost, for those Marines that are listening or watching, I take no offense to the Cran statement, especially when our former President Ronald Reagan said, some people spend an entire lifetime wondering if they made a difference in this world, and the Marines don't have that problem. So with that said, my question for you is, this is something that we would be putting on, similar to the other representative's question, to DMVA to oversee. And if this is done at the federal level, why would we throw state funds at this if it's already being done at the federal level? If you could explain that.
Just for clarification, the sub that it's already written, is moving it from DMVA to Leo. And it's because they belong to us. The National Guard, Governor Gretchen Whitmer she is the executive of the Michigan National Guard, Air National Guard. So it's not federal, because they're contracted with the state of Michigan.
Okay. And so, for instance, in the Marine Corps, you have Mortar T. I think in the Army, it's 88 Mike is a truck driver. Are you saying that this license would apply for private employment?
Yes,
Okay.
That's what we want to do, is if they essentially have their CDL in the military, they should be able to have their CDL then as a civilian.
Okay.
And because it's National Guard, they belong to Michigan. They don't belong to the federal government. So that's why it's our responsibility.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Rep. Greene, for your testimony. We appreciate it, and especially you running in here, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much, Rep. Schmaltz.
So we have Rick Donovan from the Polish Legion of American Veterans who would like to talk in support of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair Schmaltz, Vice Chairs Wozniak and Young, the members of the committee, for allowing me to testify on House Bill number 4279 today on the creation of the Michigan Army National Guard and Air National Guard Apprenticeship Act. I'm the one that created the packets that's in front of you, and I can probably answer many of the questions that you've already asked, so you can re-ask them to me if you'd like. The packet provided a duplication from my original testimony in the Veterans Committee of last session on June 11th, 2024, concerning the same bill. The testimony was entered into the committee record on that date. During the last 10 months, the only information that has changed, minus the substitution from today, is a narrowing down of Michigan Civil Service classified positioned employees, full-time employees, who could be working on House Bill number 4279 as defined in the bill once signed into a public act. Without restating in entirety what Representative Greene has provided in her testimony, I would like to draw your attention to the outline and the supporting documents I've created in the packet provided to the committee members, and focus on some key points contained within, which may answer some of the questions that were asked of Representative Greene. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'll answer any questions after I go over the outline of the packet. So basically, we have the opportunity to create the Michigan National Guard Apprenticeship Act. I'm currently a sheet metal worker. I'm a union sheet metal worker. I went through a 5-year apprenticeship, and I received a Department of Labor certificate for completion of apprenticeship. So the reality is, if you look in the Paquette in Indiana or another state, they actually have an apprenticeship at their Air National Guard base for sheet metal worker. So one of the things that this would do is that if one of our National Guard members went through the apprenticeship for sheet metal worker on the base, they would be able to come to my union and become a journeyman sheet metal worker and work side by side with me. Because they would have the same completion certificate from the Department of Labor that I have going through my apprenticeship when I went through my training 30 years ago. The key points, the directive, I believe there was a question about May 1st. And the reality is last April 29th, Governor Whitmer had an executive directive 2024-1 where the state of Michigan received $9 billion with a B to create a state workforce plan. So that state workforce plan is due to the governor on May 1st on how Leo is going to be spending that $9 billion for the infrastructure plan throughout the state. And in the packet, it shows that, part of that plan is creating 5,000 apprenticeships and other training opportunities within Michigan. So I believe in the last 10 months, since last June 11th of 2024, Leo, MVAA, DMVA, all these folks have had ample time to see how that $9 billion could be translated into this program to help our National Guard members and Air National Guard members to use their military training and their experience and their daily activities of doing their jobs in the National Guard to get a Department of Labor completion certificate so that they, once they transition out of the National Guard, can find civilian employment in the state of Michigan, is the reality. So basically what I did is, I know there's legislative analysis about how they have to figure out how to do it and everything else. I kind of laid out in this how to do it. You have the opportunity, and I was a Marine. So it's kind of basic, kind of thing. Whether I use crayons or not is irrelevant, but the opportunity, you have the path forward and funding. Well, in my opinion, as just a sheet metal worker, former Marine, the state of Michigan got $9 billion last year, at this time last year. And the governor said to Leo, create a plan. How are we going to spend this $9 billion? How are we going to create funding for training? How are we going to train folks into these infrastructure jobs? And then, of course, in 2022, the state of Missouri said, Project Eagle, you know what? We're going to do the work. We're going to do this with our National Guard. We're going to fill our jobs with our people, our citizens' soldiers, who we're going to fill the jobs with. So they've had 10 months to figure out how to spend that $9 billion. And so when you guys read with all due respect, when you all read the workforce plan in a week, I truly hope that Leo, DMVA, MVAA are all mentioned and how they're going to fund this program. Because they answer the question, why do we need the bill? Well, if it ain't in the plan next week, that's why we need the bill. Because they've had a year to do it. And $9 billion from the federal government. The directive is in the packet. So that's my synopsis of the packet, of that. The how, if you look at the path forward funding is there. When you look at the full-time employees, and I'll look at the packet, you got veterans employment reps at Leo. I believe you have 12 of them. And it says coordination with unions, apprenticeship programs, and businesses to promote and secure employment and training opportunities for veterans. Those 12 folks are all across the state at Michigan Works, near Selfridge, near Battle Creek, near Grayling, near Alpena. So there's already people in place to work with the National Guard in doing this. Obviously, you have the MVA has an apprenticeship flyer talking about it. Here's all the armories. The little dots, are the armories. So when you look at the strategy or the Michigan Works and the prosperity regions, they're right there. So how many armies you got in 2 and 3 would work with the Michigan Works, which is funded by Leo from this grant, to help these folks get into these apprenticeship programs, is the reality of it. This is the announcement from the state of Missouri, so it's not a matter of if Michigan can do it. It truly is a matter of why we aren't and why we need this bill for our citizen soldiers and those that serve us in the Michigan National Guard and the Air National Guard. I believe it was last week I got an email about how we're sending units overseas, a medical unit or whatever, to answer that question. They're going to be over there for a year. That's a year of logging hours in this apprenticeship program towards this completion certificate. They have to log hours for promotions. It's just another piece of paper to log. And then at the end of the day, how much Missouri, the question I believe was how many people went through Missouri's program and how much it cost Missouri, I think was the question was. Well, the real question is, to the director of LEO, to the director of the MVAA, and to anybody at the DMVAA, is for 10 months since Rick Donovan put this packet in the public record, have you called Missouri to ask them? Have you gotten their paperwork from the federal government? And did you cross out Missouri, keeping the MI, and wrote in again? Because it's a state program that's using federal guidelines. So they're applying to the federal government to do it. So that's all they got to do. Cross it out, get the crayons out, get the, whatever. A little white out, write it in, and submit it. Is it going to get disapproved? No. Why? Because they already approved it for Missouri. So they're going to disprove it for Michigan? That's just ridiculous. Now, the legislative analysis says, well, what occupations? Well, on the Michigan National Guard website, here's all the occupations in Michigan, whether it's a truck driver, an 88 Mike, or whatever the deal is, they're here. Now, what Rick doesn't know, because he's a volunteer, I don't know what the Grayling base has. Do they have engineers? Do they have medical? I haven't gotten into the weeds. That's not my job. I'm a volunteer. But there's plenty of people within LEO, MVAA, DMVA would know those numbers. Now, what's next is from the Department of Veterans Affairs website for GI Bill approvals and apprenticeships. So if you look at each one, I just happened to grab the one of Stout Field, which is the Indiana National Guard Stout Field. Well, that would be the equivalent of Sulphur's Air National Guard Base. And you see all the apprenticeships that are listed. And like down here it says sheet metal worker. So if an Air National Guard person goes through the sheet metal worker apprenticeship program, I'll be glad to work with them doing HVAC in a commercial building here in Michigan. Because they went through the same Department of Labor standards that I went through and that our apprentices go through today. And then I believe that's just examples. And then obviously the DTMB was included. So what should LEO, MVAA, DMVA focus on first? Well, they put out a Hot 50s job list of what Michigan needs. This is the list to 2028. So Rick's not saying that you have to do every occupation in the National Guard or the Air National Guard day one. Rick said, you know what? Let's just go off of what we need first. Let's start there. Let's find out what matches National Guard, apprenticeships, occupations, and do those first. And then we can do the other ones later, is what I think should be done, but that's just me. And then in close, that was the how. In conclusion, is to match what Missouri did. That's the bottom line. I guess these people, I guess somebody should pick up the phone and call. I believe that there's already 83 currently funded employees through the Michigan Civil Service Commission. Workforce Development Agency has 73 positions already. 13 from the executive team, from the director to the deputy director to the ABC XYZ director to whatever these titles are in state government. To Veterans Employment Services, 12 employees. Workforce Innovation, 10 employees. Adult Education, all National Guard folks are adults. Sector Strategies, which there's a list in the packet. Work-based learning, this is work-based learning. State Apprenticeship Expansion, there's 10 employees in that group itself, right there. And then post-secondary state approving agency or whatever. The MVA has currently 8 funded employees, and DTMB, I can only find 2. But I guess in close, you know, it just seems like low-hanging fruit to do this. And when you have $9 billion come from the federal government, I guarantee you in there, they're gonna say, you're gonna have to create 5,000 apprenticeships or OJTs or workforce trainings, and you're going to have to serve all the demographics. So whether it's veterans, minorities, you name it. And then you think, the National Guard. Wow, the National Guard has every demographic you can think of. They're veterans, they're all the way down the line. So why wouldn't we start here to check the box so the federal government gives Michigan more money?
All right,
But
thank you.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. We appreciate it. We have a couple quick questions, then we have to move on because we have a presentation. So let's go to Rep. Rangans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Mr. Donovan. I was just reading the executive directive talking about the source of funding. It's dedicated to building our nation's infrastructure, and it's from the Inflation Reduction Act. And then it talks a lot about the department's making an infrastructure workforce lead. And so a lot of the apprenticeships will be focused specifically on infrastructure, it sounds like, based on this funding source.
Okay.
And so I was looking, you know, this Hot 50 has a lot of those types of jobs, and a lot of the National Guards do have that kind of job, but it wouldn't necessarily be like an air traffic controller or health care professional. It would be focused on infrastructure.
Well, I mean, that's the name of the act, but I guess I would refer you to page 3 of that in the training. When you look at like the engineers, we have our engineers building runways and building stuff in Lafayette. So, I mean, I'm sure we all heard fix the damn roads. So if we're gonna have, you know, those people building roads in other countries, why can't we train them to come back to Michigan to help build ours? mean, does that make
I don't
sense?
disagree with you as a sponsor, co-sponsor of the bill. I am curious if we need to clarify that this is specifically dedicated for infrastructure apprenticeships or any apprenticeship.
No,
because
I
it-
guess, I apologize for not understanding your question. I guess when it comes to the training of the act is that, I mean, infrastructure could also be building hospitals, building schools, building other
But it's
things.
building the building, not providing the service in the
No,
building.
but it's also providing the employees to fill the building to do the work.
Okay, so
Does that
I'm
make sense?
curious if this bill might need a clarification, so I can talk to the bill sponsor about that.
Yeah, why don't we?
Well, I mean, it's
I can
it's
talk to her
whatever.
about
I mean,
that.
but the reality is that, like she said in her testimony, we already have all these folks that, if we want to focus on healthcare, if we want to focus on other things, we could focus on the healthcare occupations in the National Guard to help fill, you know, Spartan Health and Corwell Health and do whatever.
But you
they got.
cited the executive directive that doesn't mention that. And the source of funding is actually something that
Well,
may be
again,
repealed
what-
at the federal
I
level.
guess the
So this may
idea
not
is-
be able to be funded.
Well, I guess the
even.
idea is to see what they come out with in the workforce plan that's due next week, to see how they've used the $9 billion into doing that, and see how the National Guard, if they mention the National Guard and fit in that need, or if they didn't, in the other occupations outside of traditional construction jobs, into healthcare and into, you know, other sectors of the economy. I mean, the map is in here,
I think you need to talk to Rep. Greene if, you know, you have a problem with the wording of the bill. Thank you. Let's quickly go to Rep. Fox and Wolford, and then we're moving on.
Yes, I just want to say thanks for your very matter-of-fact approach to all of this.
and I apologize,
And,
looks like I was short on time.
Yeah, the one thing I found is it's really important to highlight when you say 9 billion, that's 9,000 millions. That's a lot of money, and if it's just sitting there somewhere, it's a problem, and I agree with you. And so I appreciate your common sense, matter-of-fact way of thinking, your let's not reinvent the wheel with the Missouri model. And you know, maybe my question for you is this some stuff that if it doesn't happen, that we need to take to our oversight committee? We've got one of those going on. And if it, you know, further, if it doesn't happen, do you need to run for office? So those are my questions for you.
You know what? I don't know how y'all do it, but but to answer your question, sir, the bottom line is that Leo, MVA, and DMVA have had 10 months since I presented this to this same committee last session. All this was public record last session. So what's going to be really telling is May 1st, that workforce plan of what did Leo do? If we don't need this bill, then maybe it's in the plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Devil Dog, I appreciate you. And for those that may not understand the word devil dog, it was given to Marines in World War II, where the Germans called us Telferhundren, which meant a devilish dog that comes and kills quickly. And so I appreciate you, Hard Charger, appreciate your testimony today. My question for you is, what do you think? Obviously, there's inefficiencies there between the MVAA and Leo. What do you think that breakdown is, especially if these funds are already there?
Is this my opinion?
Yes, your opinion.
My opinion is that the MVAA was formed in 2013, okay, with 4 pillars: education, employment, quality of life, their 4 pillars. And originally they thought that the workforce veterans programs were going to be moved from the Leo of the time, I think it was TIA, Talent Investment Agency, to the MVAA. Okay, that was the plan. But then they found out that the veterans program from the federal funding had to be part of the workforce program. So now we have the 2 agencies, and they, you can see the Leo has all the employees, the MVAA doesn't, but it's like we need those employees at the MVAA because Leo needs to do the work. Why Representative Greene made the change, or whatever. But I believe that those employees at MVAA need to promote it within the National Guard, the DMVA, because that's the connection, kind of a deal.
Thank you,
So
Brian.
I think that's the deal, is there's always been a.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donovan, for your testimony. We appreciate it. Not willing to speak, but also in support of the bill, Adam Majestic from Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. Next, we have testimony from Josh Parish, co-founder of VETLIFE. You can start anytime.
Madam Chair, thank you for having me today. Distinguished members of this committee, thank you for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to come here to talk about our nonprofit VETLIFE and our app Battle Buddy that we just recently released last month. So we designed our nonprofit VETLIFE to provide hope to a community that had lost faith in the people that promised to protect them when they left the military. In 2019, less than 18% of Michigan's 560,000 veterans had ever accessed a military benefit. Michigan fell within the bottom 5 of states in this country to effectively help our nation's heroes. To date, VETLIFE has helped over 143,000 veterans and their family members gain access to their benefits. So what does that mean? It means that we are creating direct economic benefits in this state by bringing the resources to the veteran rather than waiting for the veteran to come to us to gain access to those benefits. 1 month after one of our large outreach events called VetFest, we are seeing a 60% increase in veterans going down to their localized resources, their county Department of Veterans Affairs agencies, their MDHHS locations, their Michigan Works. We are bringing in, on average, just through that one event, $10 million in federal monies to stimulate the local economy. That means that the counties that these veterans live and work in, that's money being spent at the local level. Our new app, Battle Buddy, we released it last month. We've had over 30,000 downloads. I can tell you in real time what the unmet needs within the veteran community are. We field tested this in the Howell National Guard Armory last year in a chat-based version, and I was astounded to see that some of these veterans were technically considered homeless. I can tell you how many of them are searching for food insecurity. I would, before I move forward, I would like to tell you about a Vietnam veteran named Jack. So this is Jack right here. So Jack did 2 combat deployments in Vietnam. He came home to Michigan, and he was told, because he was drafted, that he was not a veteran. He went over 20 years without ever gaining access to a military benefit. The local sheriff's department found him living in a deer shack. No running water, no electricity. The power of what we do at VetLife is that we connect the resources for the veteran. I'm happy to report that Jack now has all of the benefits he's entitled to, and he's in an assisted living facility right now. So I always wonder myself, if we had, and mind you, I know we didn't have the technology back then, but what if we had resources set up in place for veterans like Jack? Would he have fallen through the cracks? And I'm going to say no. I think resoundingly I can say no. So I've talked a little bit about Battle Buddy, but I didn't really get into what it actually does. So think of Battle Buddy as a one-stop mobile platform designed to support service members as they transition out of the military and beyond. So what it does is it connects users to peer support, mental health resources, benefits navigation, and veteran-focused events all in one place. It complements the TAP and the DoD transition programs, and Battle Buddy extends support beyond the separation, offering a trusted, accessible community that helps reduce isolation and improve long-term outcomes. So our mission statement for Battle Buddy exists to empower veterans, service members, and their families by providing immediate, personalized access to resources, support, and benefits through innovative technology, ensuring no one navigates life after service alone, and integrating this in the state of Michigan model will ensure that every veteran in this state has access to the benefits and resources that they deserve. I thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what the app actually does. We do operate, I used to work for the state of Michigan, for the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency as a regional coordinator. So what I found was I had a 6-county region. I coordinated benefits for about 63,000 veterans. And what I realized is I never had a shortage of the resource providers coming to the events. What I did is I had a shortage of veterans coming to the events. And so what I found is that these veterans, it's not that they don't want to gain access to these benefits, it's that we just don't do a great job of explaining what those benefits are or where to go to get them. So what separates us from other organizations is we don't necessarily compete in that space because we want to bring the vetted resources to the veteran down to a localized area. And we truly believe that by empowering these veterans that we're going to reduce the veteran suicide rate. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I think it's important that, of course, we want to get our veterans the resources they need as soon as we can. What is your plans for outreach to get to as many veterans as you can with this?
Yeah, so 36% of Michigan veterans are considered rural, so meaning they live outside of a 30 to 50 mile radius of any VA localized resources. So what we found is that this app, we wanted to grow it in an organic way. Because there's a lot of apps out there. The federal government has apps, the state has apps, but it's what's inside the app that really attracts the veteran. And for 30,000 downloads in 1 month, I mean, I think that's a perfect attestment. And so hopefully this answers your question. So when we did our field testing at the Howell National Guard Armory, we presented to about 78 National Guard veterans. On average, each veteran shared that app 4 times. So it was opened up over 300 times. We were spotlighted in the VA newsletter. We're partnering with all 83 County Department of Veterans Affairs offices through the Michigan Association of County Veterans Counselors. I've been speaking to the MVAA. I've been speaking to the coalition. The relationships I've built over the years has really garnered some trust. So they know when we put something out that it's going to be a trusted brand within the veteran community.
Great. Rep. Alford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Josh, thank you for being here today. I appreciate you. I've seen your work. I've visited the VETLIFE, the Vet Fest.
Yeah, thank you.
Question for you. What awards have you received or are up for?
Yeah.
Because I could say it, but I'd rather hear it from you.
Yeah, so you don't see the best part of me right here, and that's my wife. My wife, Courtney, she's a military spouse, and she honestly is the brainchild behind all of this, behind VetLife, behind VetFest. And so I always smile because I think about her. But in 2023, she received the Governor Service Award through Governor Gretchen Whitmer, for national service to this country and for the veteran community. We just recently received, out of 450 nonprofits in this country, we were a top 5 finalist for the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. And so what does that mean? That means all living Medal of Honor recipients sat down somewhere and voted VetLife, that my wife and I started at our kitchen table, as a highly functioning nonprofit within this country. And actually tonight, I'm kind of an introvert. I would rather my wife be here, but tonight we're actually being honored as the Michigan Veteran Small Business Award winner. And it's her birthday, by the way. So I think it'll be good for her to because she does so much work behind the scenes. So I appreciate that. I know she's a very humble person. So
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank
then
you.
also, I know that there's 1,712 veterans for every one VSO in the state of Michigan. That's
Oh, yeah.
tragic, and that's horrific to think that one person would be able to take care of those, our veterans. So I appreciate the app. I've got to meet, for all of you, got to meet someone who's a Marine who was helped by your organization by the name of Taryn. And I know he came at a time where he was extremely broken, had nothing, and a few years later, after VetLife helping him, he's a highly functioning member of our society, just nominated Iraq Veteran of the Year, and is doing great things for the community. So I've seen firsthand the impact of your organization, so thank you for that. And then I'd ask that you had mentioned that the state and the federal government has similar apps. I have found on one of the apps in the state that I went on that there's broken links. What is your experience with that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's not because of great intentions. I think just the state and the federal government, I think they're thinking of this more of a resource directory. And so you made a very good point. So I think what you were saying by that is, so the preferred method to gain access to your benefits for a veteran is through what's called an accredited veteran service officer, somebody that has went through the training to help connect the dots. 1,712 veterans for every one VSO in the state. Something like Battle Buddy, what I love most about it, and I'll give you a real world example. Livingston County, their director, Ramon Bacco, called me last week and said, we've actually had Livingston County veterans that had no idea that our county VA office was here in Howell, Michigan. They've lived here for 10 plus years, had no idea that we were here. They found us through your app, and we can apply for those benefits that that veteran is entitled to receive. So I feel like this is a complimentary service, a complimentary free service. I want to be clear that the veteran would never, I'm an Iraq War vet myself, no veteran or their family member should ever have to pay to gain access to the benefits that they earn through this country. So,
And last question or last statement would be, I guess, for the chair and the rest of us. Just last month in the state of Michigan, we had 4 National Guard members kill themselves. And this is a real issue, and I can tell you it comes from not being able to be effectively connected to their benefits. Josh had mentioned rural people, the poorest of poor, veteran, non-veteran, have a phone in their hand, and this gives them an opportunity to be connected to those benefits. So I have no other questions for you. Thank you for your service. God bless you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much for you and your wife. Happy birthday to her, for all that you do to help. And what can we do to help you expand this app? What can we do?
Well, I will say this. So I've been putting the pieces of the puzzle together for quite a few years. I worked for a county VA office, the state of Michigan, and then now with the nonprofit. So I've been putting forth I've been working legislatively, so we helped create the County Veteran Service Fund. When I worked for the county, there were 13 counties in the state of Michigan that did not have a county Department of Veterans Affairs office. We worked together to get an annual appropriation for that. I recently worked to put forth an appropriations request to digitize all of Michigan's National Guard military records. Because a veteran should never have to, get paper forms of their records in this day and age. So what I would say is, I think my wife and I have been very clear about how we want to roll this out and then work with everybody in one cohesive unit. So I do know that there is an appropriations bill that was put forth through your new legislative system. I theorize, and I would highly recommend, if you look at my 3-year budget request, I really believe that I can encounter 33% of the veteran communities annually and hit about 99% of the veteran population in a span of 3 years. And check me, fact check me. Geographical distribution of expenditures is the federal report that tracks federal dollars coming back down into the state of Michigan. So, ma'am, to answer your question, I would say supporting the appropriations request to allow us to go out and just do good things for veterans in the state of Michigan would be very helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Oh, you have one more question. Rep. Wolford has one more question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, you alluded to it, but very quickly, approximately, how much federal dollars are left at the federal level that the state could be getting, then that veteran being able to use those funds to commit to our infrastructure, our tax base, et cetera. Thank you.
No, it's a great question. So they joke around when you're in the military. It said that, if you don't use your benefits, you're going to lose them. And the government theorizes that each veteran is worth about $1 million in benefits. So I always say, with this app, you have $1 million worth of benefits in your pocket. So that's your VA home loan, your education benefits. I'm a living proof. Chapter 30 paid for my law school. I have no debt, $160,000. And I've tried to take everything that the military has taught me and be a productive member of Michigan society. What if we could just get this in the hands of 100,000 more veterans? How many more of me, how many more of my wives would be out there that could just be doing, good things in the community, be a force of nature? So, yeah, there's a lot of money that could be coming back into Michigan through the federal benefits process if we were just connecting the dots for these men and women. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I'd like to recognize two people here, a veteran Sharina Johnson and Professor Diana Agee from Jackson College. Thank you for joining us at the hearing today. Rep. Burns moves to excuse absent members without objection, so ordered. There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.